What is up, guys? So, welcome to my review for the first ever episode of Black Lightning, being Season 1, Episode 1, titled The Resurrection, and not pilot, like every other TV show, which is something that always annoyed me. Like, you can't come up with a name for your first ever episode, so I like the fact that Black Lightning's first episode actually has a title. But whatever, let's get into the review. This show is obviously called Black Lightning, which means that the main character of the show will be Jefferson Pierce, aka Black Lightning. And my first impression of the main hero of the show is, and remember this is a first impression, so my opinion may vary with the season, with the rest of the season and the rest of the show. But for right now, I thought that Jefferson Jackson, aka Black Lightning, was a relatively good main character in this first episode. I say relatively because there were times where his acting, as in the actor's acting, not Jefferson Pierce's acting, but there were times where his acting was a little off, but most of the time it was actually pretty great. And I mean, I wouldn't say great, I would say good. This is only the first episode, so far I'd say that he is a relatively good character, and I say relatively obviously because his acting is off sometimes, but most of the time it's fine. And the Black Lightning half of the character was pretty great. Black Lightning has never been an interesting superhero by any means necessary, like in any TV show, in any movie, in any comic book. He's never been in the forefront of anything. He's never been that interesting because, or this is one of the reasons, his power set is really boring. All he can do is shoot electricity, and I guess also control electricity. And that's pretty boring for a superhero. But in this show, or at least in the first episode, the way they used his powers in the fight scenes was actually really interesting. Like he like incorporated the electricity into his fighting style, it just made his power set so much more interesting and exciting. But at the same time, whenever he was just punching and kicking and not using his electricity, it looked a little clunky, especially with the suit he's wearing, which also looks a little clunky. Speaking of this suit, when the poster for the costume was revealed, it looked really great. It might have been because of the shading they used, or the way they just put it on a poster. Costumes always look better on posters than they do on the actual show, or usually. But when the trailers came out, it didn't look that great. It looked pretty clunky, honestly. And then we see it in the actual show, and it still looks a little clunky. Honestly, his costume in the flashbacks in 2005 is honestly better, and also more comic book accurate. I'm not going to pretend that I actually care that much about Black Lightning in the comics, so I'm fine with them changing things from time to time. Like, I don't care, really. But the costume in the flashbacks, it just looks better. And on top of that, the fact that it's more comic book accurate, just go with that one. But obviously we're going with this new, more high-tech, which obviously is better for Jefferson himself. It works better in the field, obviously, but it just doesn't look as good. But moving on from Black Lightning to the rest of the characters, like his family, like his daughters and his ex-wife, who felt like an actual real family. I don't know why, but maybe they had like a chemistry. They actually really work together as a family. You have an overprotective father, and also overprotective sister, and a more rebellious little sister, and then an ex-wife. It worked. They worked really well as a family. Now, speaking of like real world things, because they felt like a real world family, a big selling point for this, a lot of people have been talking about this, is that they use real world problems in this show. And that's not really a positive for me, because this is a superhero show. I would prefer it if it had more or less real world problems, like a villain and superhero fighting each other. But if they're going to go for it, then whatever, I'm fine with that, and they do it really well. Although, I do think they take it to a crazy extreme, because they said in the beginning that there were over 150 shootings from the 100 gang alone in this small city. That doesn't feel right, especially with how you look at the rest of the episode. The city doesn't look that terrible, really. Like, when they're at school, I know they said that was like a safe zone or anything, or something like that. But still, it doesn't look like the city's that bad. I mean, 150 shootings in one weekend from one gang, That is a little insane, and they took it to an extreme. Also, Jefferson said that he was pulled over like 3 times in 1 month. That's also taking it to kind of an extreme, but that's more realistic. Speaking of the 100, for just normal gangsters where the superhero just runs through them like Black Lightning did in this episode, they were actually really fleshed out. Especially Lala or Octavius or whatever his name was, and also Jennifer's boyfriend, who I don't actually think got a name. If he did, I didn't hear it, and if I did hear it, I don't remember it because I don't know. Neither of them had the most memorable names, but they were actually really fleshed out, especially for normal gangsters that a superhero can just annihilate in a second. Like we learned that Octavius was, I think that was his name, Octavius. But we learned that he used to be at Jefferson's school, and Jefferson was his teacher or his principal or something like that, which is pretty interesting. He's just a normal gangster in the gang, the 100 gang, but he and also that other guy were really fleshed out. And from the 100, we get to Tobias Whale, who is the head of the 100 and also killed Black Lightning. We learned in this episode that the reason that Black Lightning became Black Lightning was to kill Tobias Whale to get revenge for killing his father. I hope that later in the show or in the season or in the show we learn that Peter Gamby was the one that actually killed his father, because that's what happened in the comics. So that his whole life as Black Lightning has been a lie, and also that would create some really great drama with Peter Gamby. But unlike the 100 gangsters like Will and Octavius, Will and Lala. I looked up their names. It's Will and Lala. Unlike those two, he wasn't really fleshed out. This is his first episode, so he doesn't really need to be. But that's just my first impression. He looked like a normal mob boss who kills the people who work for him, which always frustrates. I never liked when they did that in movies, when the mob boss killed the people who works for him. Even the Joker, when the Joker does that, it annoys the hell out of me. Because why would anybody ever work for somebody like that? Somebody that will kill them. I don't understand. Like, they go out of their way to join this gang. I don't know. It infuriates me, and I do not like it. And I don't like the villains that do that, the mob bosses that do that. And Tobias Whale, he did that. He didn't actually kill Lala. He just shot him in the chest with that crossbow or whatever that was, which probably should have killed him, or at least badly injured him. But he did kill that guy who was begging for him not to kill him, and he's saying Tobias, as if like he knows him, as if he probably worked for him, which is just something I don't like. I don't like it when mob bosses do that in TV shows and movies, but one thing that is cool is that he has a piranha tank, which is pretty awesome. Now, it was said that Black Lightning will not be in the Arrowverse, but in this episode, somebody on the news station said that there's in this Black Lightning universe, there are other cities with superheroes, with people with powers. He said, why is Black Lightning being called a vigilante? And he pronounced vigilante like vigilante, which is just wrong. But why is Black Lightning being called a vigilante when other cities have people with superpowers who are called heroes? And who knows, maybe that's a reference to The Flash, or maybe it's a reference to Superman or Supergirl. Who knows? It's possible that Black Lightning actually takes place on any Earth in the Arrowverse. Hopefully Earth 1 or Earth 38. Because it's such a contained story in this one city that they don't need to reference the other cities. They did a little bit, I guess, if you're gonna that guy referenced him when he said other cities have superheroes, but that's really the extent of it. It's a big world. Earth is a big place. You don't have to mention every other superhero out there. So that statement that guy made opens the door for a possibility of a crossover between Black Lightning and the rest of the Arrowverse shows, either being on Earth 1, Earth 38, or any of the other Earths in the multiverse, except for Earth 15, because we just learned on episode 10 of The Flash, season 4, that's a dead world, so any Earth, it could be on any Earth other than Earth 15, or I guess Earth X. So I just told you everything I really need to tell you, like Black Lightning, his suit, the fight scenes, the Pierce family, the real world problems that the show was going for. Tobias Whale, the 100. But what it all comes down to is that, did this episode entertain me? And I would say it was a little iffy. I thought that it started really slow and boring, honestly, until he became Black Lightning. It was pretty boring, and that he didn't become Black Lightning until 25 minutes in, I'm pretty sure. So for 25 minutes, the episode was pretty boring. But once he did become Black Lightning, it was actually a lot of fun, and it was very entertaining. But he wasn't Black Lightning for most of the episode, which I can't fault them for or anything. You can't be a superhero for, like, right at the beginning of the episode. I mean, you can, but they weren't doing that here. So I'm not going to fault them for this. This is their pilot. But I'm just going to say the first 25 minutes, or however long it took for him to get into the Black Lightning suit, it was pretty boring. So in conclusion, this episode was pretty boring until he became Black Lightning. But once he did, it was actually pretty great. The fight scenes, at least when he was using his electricity powers, were really great. The 100 were really fleshed out, even, like, especially for gangsters. The Pierce family really felt like a real family, and the real world problems, for the most part, was really done well. Tobias Whale, however, and Black Lightning's suit, I'm a little iffy about, but you know what? This is the first episode. I might change my mind, and I probably will change my mind in the future. So I give this episode an 8.4 out of 10. But anyway, let me know what you thought about the episode in the comments down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.